sun where I find. I know it's hard sometimes. Pieces of peace in the sun's peace of mind. I know it's hard sometimes. Yeah, I think about the end just way too much. But it's fun to fantasize on my enemies who wouldn't wish who I was. But it's fun to fantasize. Oh, 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 I'm falling, so I'm taking my time on my ride. Oh, 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 I'm falling, so I'm taking my time.
This is one of the first photos I have of my wife, and it was shot on an iPhone. And as I scanned through my Apple Photos library, which accurately details a history of my life, I noticed that back then, most of the photos I shot were actually shot on other digital cameras because, well, back then, they looked significantly better than a mobile phone. Now, when I first met my wife, she was using a beaten up old like Nokia phone, you know, the ones with the little keyboard underneath, that also had a horrendous camera. But we started dating and, well, one thing led to another and she bought an iPhone. Now, over the next 15 years, we have used these always evolving phones to capture these treasured moments and memories that I know that one day I will struggle to remember myself in my old age without having a visible reminder, a photo, a video, something to jog my memory. But somewhere along the way, I found myself getting bored of the iPhone. It's minor iterative updates, slowness in adopting new technology, the premium prices Apple charge for, well, everything. It feels like Apple got comfortable being at the top. They got complacent. And so I left. I left the walled garden of safety for an Android phone. And I've made plenty of videos on this channel already about that experience, which I'd love for you to go watch after you've watched this video, of course. But with the launch of the iPhone 16, this gave me a really great opportunity to do something that I haven't done for, well, like 10 or 15 years, to pick up an iPhone again after not using one for a very long time, and to approach the iPhone 16 with a pair of fresh eyes once again. So this isn't going to be like the other iPhone 16 review videos. I'm not going to go through the motions and talk about the design of the iPhone because, well, it's an iPhone. Like nothing's really new there at all. Now, the only thing I will say here is that this year I was finally able to pick up the smaller iPhone 16 Pro and not the Pro Max without losing out on any features, which is literally like a first for quite a while now. I actually wanted to do this with last year's iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max, but no, good old Apple added, I think it was the 5 times telephoto into only the 15 Pro Max model, which again kind of forced me and probably most others to get the Pro Max model as well. But I am absolutely loving having a smaller but still very capable iPhone once again. Now, a quick shout out and thank you to Magback for sponsoring this video. More on them and this awesome iPhone case a little bit later on in this video. But this is the first year that I also decided to pick up a regular iPhone 16 because for the first time in, well, literally forever, I wasn't actually sure if I needed the Pro iPhone anymore. Now, long story short, I definitely do still need the Pro iPhone, but I'm going to talk about both of the phones in this video because I do think that the 16 is still a great buy for the vast majority of people if you can just get over the fact that it still has a 60Hz display in 2024 and 2025.
iPhone 16 raises the bar for what an iPhone can do.
So let's get straight into the new features, and first up, it's the camera control button this year. And I both love and hate this button. Now, it is great for taking selfies with the rear cameras, I found. I love that it's a dedicated button that can launch the camera, which now then frees up multiple other buttons and, you know, shortcuts elsewhere on my phone that would otherwise, you know, be used to launch the camera. For that feature, it is great. Now, you can also swipe over it and press it to adjust various other settings on the camera and then push down to take a photo. The problem I have, though, is that using the camera control button, and this is for both the regular iPhone 16 and the 16 Pro, is that to use it accurately, you have to really adjust your grip to a really unnatural position, because if you don't, then I find it just misses half the time. And then when you do push to take a photo quite a few times, I've ended up actually inadvertently adjusting a camera setting just before taking a photo. And probably the most common one people will probably go for is to use it to control the zoom. But because the size of the button and, it's kind of out of reach unless you adjust your grip, it means you need to constantly swipe to adjust that zoom, when actually you could just do this all on screen, much smoother and with a way more comfortable grip and without those accidental touches. So I agree with basically everyone at this stage when I say that this button should be moved far closer to the edge and probably made to be a bit bigger and more accurate, like touch area, so that you can actually use it, for most people to properly use it.
So unreliable.
It's meant to be intended to be used. It's one of those, bit of a funny one, this one. But for its flaws, it is still a nice addition to the iPhone this year. Now I think if you love it, great, you can use it. If you don't love it, well, you can just pretend that it's not there and just carry on as you always did. And you've probably seen this in a few clips already, but this is the new Elite case from Magback, which is by far my favorite phone case of all time, thus far. And they agreed to sponsor this video, which is pretty cool because I get to tell you about their new Elite case, which I would have gone and bought anyway, like all the other cases I've collected over the years. Now, their Elite case kind of does everything you'd expect any case to do. It protects your phone from drops and scratches. It has raised edges to protect the screen and the cameras, of course. But it also has a ton of extra and useful features, like these incredibly strong magnets, where you can literally stick your phone to anything metal. Maybe it sounds like a gimmick, possibly, until you actually start using it. Every single day when I'm at the gym, I stick my phone up in front of me. It sticks to my Secret Lab desk and doesn't slide off. I've stuck it to microwaves to take calls and watch videos whilst I'm in the kitchen. So legit, a feature I use every single day. Now, the Elite case also has a finger loop that you can tuck away when you don't need it. It has a magnetically attached kickstand on the back. Really, really nice, that feature. And all of the buttons and even the rubber grip down the side, all of this is swappable with different colors. Now, I'm a huge fan of this red and black combo right now, but also kind of quite like just having these random colors everywhere. And it comes with a pretty easy to fit screen protector. You can pick up one of these cases along with their range of other accessories like their wallet using the 15% discount, which I'll link down below. And once again, huge thank you to Magback for sponsoring this portion of the video. And thank you for watching this part 2, if you did, because it helps support me grow the channel, which then means we can make better videos over time. Speaking of which, I would love for you to let me know your thoughts on the iPhone 16 this year down in the comments down below. Once this video gets posted, I'm going to reply to as many comments as I possibly can. So yeah, give it a try and thank you very much. But camera control wasn't the biggest new addition to this year's iPhone lineup. Now that award goes to Apple Intelligence.
The next generation of iPhone has been designed for Apple Intelligence from the ground up.
The iPhone 16 is Apple's way of putting their own stamp on what AI looks like on an iPhone.
Built from the ground up.
Except there is no Apple Intelligence. Nothing. No, this exclusive feature has been delayed until potentially early to mid next year if rumors are to be believed. And whilst that does kind of suck, I have actually been running the developer beta of iOS on both of my phones from the day I got them. Even though I'm in the UK, if you have the beta, you can, or beta, where you're from, beta, you can actually set your phone's language to the US, but then change the Siri voice back to UK voice. The only problem this causes for me though is it breaks my HomePod speakers because they just no longer recognize my voice. So I can tell you that first off, I do believe that it's coming. It's not an empty promise because they at least have a proof of concept in beta form that somewhat works, just not across all of the features yet. So with the beta, we now have a new animation, and I can definitely tell you that it feels just like having a more natural conversation with the new Siri. The most common thing I've done with this that tends to work very well every time is asking it to add appointments to your calendar. Now you can be really quite hesitant at asking it to do something, and it will both patiently wait for you, but not wait too long where you're, waiting for it to reply. Siri, can you add a calendar appointment for the 20th of next month for my haircuts at Haircuts in Parkgate? It definitely just feels really natural to me. I found over on my Pixel and using Google Gemini, it would have a really hard cutoff where it would stop listening to you very quickly and then start processing what you've asked. But in some cases, it would cut off in the middle of your hesitation. So that is really, really great. I also love the summarized notifications. Now I actually think this really ones up the notifications on an Android phone. It's just a really clean way to tidy up the notifications on your screen, and then you can just read the summary, and if you don't care for anything in the summary, you can just swipe away the whole stack. But if there is something, then you can tap, expand things, and then find the one that you're interested in. Although it can sometimes confuse itself by combining like multiple notifications and sometimes get things wrong. I think I saw one early this week from someone who had a notification saying iJustine had died. She hasn't, by the way. It just mixed up like notifications together and said the wrong thing. So it's not always quite right yet. There are also smart replies to messages, which I mostly just ignore because it's quicker to just type what I want to say than struggle through either waiting for it to generate a response that I probably don't want to say anyway, or just, wait and then tap a word. It's just that whole thing. I just want to just say what I want to say. It's a lot easier and quicker for me to do that. Now, what I have been playing with, and it does actually work quite well, is called Intelligence Breakthrough and Silencing, I think it's called, where it will allow you to put your phone into a focus mode, but it will somewhat like intelligently AI allow through notifications it thinks are important. Now, I've used this a few times where more time-sensitive notifications have been allowed through, which I thought was actually really, really useful. Things like a text message from someone saying they'll be there in 10 minutes, or a notification from the DPD delivery app to say my parcel will be delivered soon. Those kind of things that it knows are like time critical, it seems to allow through. And also there is now call recording / transcribing on iPhone, something we've not had before. Yeah, I know, Android's had it for a long time. Now you start a phone call up, you tap this button in the top corner, and a message will play to the caller to let them know the call's being recorded. But now you have the recording and full transcription of that conversation.
This call will be recorded.
Hey, so yeah, that was really great. I think we should do it at 5 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you. See you next time. We should do it at 5 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you. See you next time. Which is pretty neat, like especially if you think you're about to have a call that you might need to refer back to anytime in the future. But aside from those ones, the rest is still missing. There's no
on-screen awareness. So when your friend texts you about a new album, you'll be able to simply say, play that.
This is all like still to come in the future. But like I said before, I do have high hopes and expectations. Now, the thing I'm excited for with Apple is that this is the new Siri, which I expect to replace old Siri. Now, that means on CarPlay, on Mac, on iPads, but hopefully also over time, I'd love to see that come to other products like the Apple TV and definitely HomePods because, well, over on Android, we have Google Gemini on phone, but jump into a car and use Android Auto and you're back to like the basic Google Assistant instead. There's no like Gemini available in car yet. It's raining, I know. It's England. But speaking of which, my experience of Apple Intelligence to navigate somewhere has been just drop dead awful right now. Navigate to Waterlooville Air Rifle Club. Navigate to Cold Mansion. Navigate to Cold East Mansion. But I don't want to lay it on too thick just yet because, again, I'm trying to use navigation in the UK whilst my phone is set to US English language, but speaking in UK English and whilst running a beta version of the software. So I'm not going to lay it on too thick just yet, but again, I really hope navigation gets fixed before general release because it's pretty bad right now from as far as I'm concerned. And so as far as Apple Intelligence goes, if they can pull it off, it looks like it could be, in my opinion, one of the best implementations of this AI thing that everyone's talking about that we've seen in a phone before. Everyone else just seems to be focusing on, oh, hey, you can use AI to generate pictures from a quick sketch and remove objects from a photo and just stuff like that that I just find that I don't use 99% of the time, and many people I talk to also don't use. Now, Apple's idea that the new Siri and AI, or Apple Intelligence, whatever it is, will be contextually aware and will be on device, and it can read through things like your emails and messages, again, like privacy and those kind of things, but it does it on device to extract data so that it can better answer your questions that you ask it. And you can then get it to do things in those apps as well. It just feels like a total game changer to me, as long as it works, and as long as it works well. So put a pin in that, to be continued on Apple Intelligence. And so as far as everything else goes on the iPhone, it's all pretty much of a matchlist this year. As everywhere, when you're buying a new flagship phone, battery life is good, performance is good, build quality is good, cameras are good, software is good. Everything on this phone is good. So look, the question of should you or shouldn't you upgrade is totally down to you and your own personal circumstances. Now, if you need a new phone because your current one is either too old or the battery is knackered or you're due an upgrade on your contract, whatever the reason is. And if you want that phone to be an iPhone, then yes, any of the iPhone 16s will be a great choice for you. Now, if you're not sure because maybe you're bored of the iPhone like I have been, then I'd actually consider either the S24 Ultra, which I've made a whole kind of series of videos about, or potentially even the Pixel 9 Pro. But the thing for me about going back to the iPhone and picking one up again after 8 months of not using one is that I really started noticing things that I never really noticed before, or just maybe never appreciated before because it was just, always there and you just forget about that stuff after a while. Now, I am a lifelong iPhone user who has switched to Android. My wife has an iPhone, one of my kids has an iPad, one has a Pixel tablet, and because of that, much of my house is still on the Apple ecosystem. The biggest one, of course, is Apple TV, which I think is still one of Apple's best products they've ever made, and no other TV smart box competitor can come close to it. But I guess let's call them the quality of life features that are, of course, the Apple ecosystem are just second to none when you own multiple products. Of course it would be. But things like when using a Mac and wearing an Apple Watch, I'm wearing two right now, testing them, your Mac will then prompt you and say, oh, hey, by the way, you're using an Apple Watch. Do you want to use it to unlock a Mac where you just walk up to it and it unlocks for you without you having to do anything? Yes, please. There's no hunting around for the settings to enable it. It's just, oh, hey, by the way, you're doing this. Did you know you can do this? Click here and we'll show you how. Like when sitting down to watch a TV in the evening and you want to search for something, my iPhone just pops up and says oh, you can use the keyboard to type onto the things on the screen. Or pop on a pair of fantastically overpriced Apple AirPod Max headphones that now have USB-C, amazing, but aren't a total waste of money whatsoever. But pop them on whilst watching Apple TV and they will conveniently switch audio to them and give you a full cinema audio experience whilst everyone else, you're sat there in this very, very quiet room in total silence. And then we have an Apple Photos album called TV Wallpaper, where we can add photos from them to come up on our TVs, which always just lets us look back on fun moments and fun memories. And this year, I also decided to pick up, and yes, actually keep the black Ultra 2, the AirPods 4 with noise cancellation. I also picked up the smaller Series 10 Apple Watch, and yes, for whatever mad reason, the AirPods Max. Mainly because they're just great to just own and compare to other headphones when I make reviews on this channel. There's no I wouldn't really recommend anyone goes to buy all of that. But without going into a full review on all of these devices, just touching on them very, very quickly. Now, the black Ultra 2 is nice. I actually bought it for the new watch band, which looks and feels really, really great. It's much lighter than I was expecting, but getting the band on and off the watch can take quite some time and a bit of force. I think because they've just literally sprayed the black coating on with very little tolerance for, allowing extra space for that layer of paint. So pushing the band on and off can be quite difficult for the first few times. The AirPods 4 with noise cancellation, actually, I am most surprised by these because as someone who can't really get AirPods and AirPod Pros to stay in my ears, even when using the foam ear tips, which if you are struggling with AirPod Pros and are struggling, then just well worth giving these foam ear tips a try because they can make a huge, huge difference. I'll link down below for those ones. But the AirPod 4s actually stay in my ears at the gym now, which is something that only the Beats Fit Pros can achieve. I think it's down to how light the AirPod 4s are though. There's no real weight in them to pull them down out of your ears. And whilst the noise cancellation, isn't as good as the Pros, if you are struggling with AirPods falling out of your ears, but still want to give a pair of AirPods a try, then give those a try because they've been fantastic so far. Also, the smaller Series 10 Apple Watch, I genuinely really, really like wearing. It's way, way more comfortable than the Ultra because of the size. But the biggest issue that I have is with my growing collection of watch bands, none of them are gonna fit because, well, they're all for the bigger size of the Apple Watch. So I think I'm gonna have to return this smaller one and then have to pick up again the larger size watch instead. Otherwise, all of those watch straps just won't fit and they become a bit pointless at that time. But for all of Apple's sins, the fact that both chargers and the Apple Watch straps I bought for the older generation Apple Watches still today fit all of my watches is not something Apple would normally do. Surely that doesn't sound very Apple at all. And yeah, the AirPods Max, let's just leave it at that because there's really isn't any reason to go and buy them at all. And so this brings me to the cameras of the iPhone 16 and the iPhone 16 Pro. Now first, let's talk about the 16 and 16 Plus versus the 16 Pro and the Pro Max. So on the 16 and 16 Plus, you get 2 cameras versus the 3 on the Pro and the Pro Max. And all of these cameras are some of the most capable cameras that you can buy today. But here is where I would say that, for me at least, someone who I thought might be switching to the regular 16 this year, I just can't. Like, I'd have to stick with the Pro, and that is because of the additional camera. Now, multiple times in the 2 short weeks that I've had this phone, I've gone to take shots or videos of my kids, or when I was at a Linkin Park gig, and having that extra 5 times optical zoom made a huge difference in the quality of what I could capture. And I'm not talking a small difference, I'm talking the difference of a like blurry oil painting versus something that I actually, is sharp and detailed enough to know who the person is that you took a photo of in the first place. So that alone, at least for me, is reason enough to buy the Pro over the regular iPhone. Even though I love the brighter colors of the regular iPhones this year, wish they would come to the Pro models, maybe next year, probably never. But I would say that when pushing to extremes like low light and super far away, I do think something like the S24 Ultra performs better. Like if you look at these 2 photos, you can clearly see there's more detail in the S24 Ultra's photos. But like I said, those like extremities aside, I'm not one to pixel peep and compare, oh, look at this phone has slightly darker tone on his jacket over that phone, or just any of that stuff. Now, there are, of course, plenty of reviewers on there on YouTube who do all that sort of thing if you really want to go and look for those videos. But there is one really, really nice feature on the Pro phones this year, and that is that you can shoot at 4K 120 FPS, which lets you do like proper high quality slow motion, and it does it really, really well. And not only does it do it well, but others have found that you can literally leave the phone running, recording in 120 FPS without it overheating and shutting down like basically every other phone does. Now, in fact, you're probably going to run out of storage space, I imagine, before you actually run out of it overheats and shuts down, because it just doesn't do it basically. So that is generally quite a nice upgrade from last year's iPhone, but probably something most people will only use a handful of times, in all honesty. But honestly, as a guy who has over 20,000 photos and over 1,000 videos stored on Apple Photos, not including what's on my Google Photos reel as well, I never look back on a photo and go, oh, look at those highlights have blown out. What an awful photo. No, you look back on your photos and go, oh, damn, that was the time we kidnapped our best friend and threw him into a limo and then took him to Paris for a stag do weekend. Or that was the time when the whole world was locked down and we just did nothing. We just drank, we sunbathed, played with the kids. Remember how good that was? Aside from being stuck in a house, of course. Or maybe, just maybe, it's that you just realize you fast forwarded a decade or 2. Your kids are growing up, you're getting older, and you are so glad that you have these photos, these videos, these memories that you can cherish forever and revisit them anytime you wish. And it takes you right back to how you felt back then. The sunny days, the rainy days, happy days, even the sad days. And just appreciate that whichever phone you choose, whether you're a blue bubble or a green bubble, at the end of the day, none of it really matters.